Hey guys, Furum here, and today I'm going to be testing the Chevrolet 2016 Camaro SS in multiplayer. Now, I've made two videos about this car before, one at 1481 rank and one at 1644 rank, but I've upgraded to 1670 rank, and my tuning is 5504 and 5555 in Pro Kits. And I have an American flag decal because, well, I'm American and it is an American car, so I think it fits it very well. So our first race is on Munich against 3 Vulcans and an Hussaryas GT, and it is 2 laps. One good thing to do in the Camaro, if you're driving it at any rank really, always pick 3 laps, because this will almost always force 2 laps in which the Camaro does best. Even with my completely maxed acceleration, it still starts up quite a bit slower than the Aranera and the Vulcans up there. And I'm very surprised I did not wreck on that train. I just kind of bounced off of it. So most people tune their Camaros to between ranks 1450 to 1500, and I do believe that is the best rank bracket for this car. But as you will see in this video, it still does extremely well up in this rank as well. So as any Camaro driver knows, it has pretty bad drifting abilities. While not being the worst drifter, its drifting radius is pretty wide, so it has trouble taking sharp corners and the big turns on Sector 8, and the one on Munich that we just did. So because I've become pretty familiar with Munich, I did not wreck a single time, unlike some of the other cars in this race, and so I managed to pull off the win. I beat a 1679 Vulcan, which is my Vulcan tune, by the way, a 1694 Vulcan, a 1690 Aranera Hussaryas GT, and another 1679 Vulcan. I've been seeing quite a few of those since I posted my video about that tune. Now for a race on the Camaro's best track in the game, Tokyo Reverse on 2 laps. It is long and simple. Those are the best kinds of tracks for the Camaro. Some others would be Barcelona and Azure Coast. In some races in this video, I will be extra tanked like the one I just played on Munich, and in some I will be single tanked like this one I'm playing right now, just to give you an idea of how the car performs both with extra tank and single tank, and it performs pretty good whichever way you play it. So at this rank, the Camaro can reach 313 miles per hour, just 1 mile per hour slower than my Corvette Grand Sport at 1679 rank, but it has better drifting and better acceleration, and it's not elite. So I would say that at this rank, the Camaro is a better car than the Grand Sport is, but not at Max Pro. At Max Pro, the Grand Sport is a good 7 or 8 miles per hour faster. So I have passed one of the Vulcans and the 2 Aranera Hussaryas in this race, and I have 1 Vulcan left to catch up to. We are the only 5 people in the race. So the Vulcan up there is a 1662 ranked Vulcan. It goes about 3 or 4 miles per hour slower than me, which is why I am ever so slowly catching up to him. But I am catching up, and you can see that the Camaro does take the corns fairly well when you drift punch nicely. So it was kind of unfortunate for me that in this race I did not have extra tanks because of this extremely long section on this track that is infamous for having no nitro for the longest time. But thankfully this car has very good nitro efficiency, which is one of its main strengths, I would say, besides its amazing top speed, because it's better than the Vulcans, I believe, and I've now managed to pass him because I actually managed to take the turns better, but then he passed me again because of his better acceleration. The Vulcan and the Camaro at this rank, on long tracks like this run, will have a real battle. Even though the Camaro is really good at this rank, the main reason you won't see many is, well, because I said earlier, most people keep them around 1500 or slightly below that. Here, this Vulcan tried to knock down me, but instead he got pushed over and wrecked on a tank. So yes, 2 Vulcans and 1 Aranera Hussaryas down, and I finished the race quite far ahead of everyone. So the one that I beat was, as I said, a 1662. I also beat a 1684 Vulcan, a 1681 Hussaryas GT, and a 1699 Hussaryas GT. If you're in a Camaro, vote this track over anything else. Now we have a race on Alps, which is a slightly shorter track. And since I'm not running extra tanks and I'm in the back, I figured it would be best to just not do triple tap at the beginning and go for the perfect nitro so that my nitro would last longer. And I did not need to fear getting knocked down because, well, I was in the back. That's one thing I've learned to be very good in multiplayer. If you're in the back, there's really not much need to triple tap so you can conserve your nitro. But if you're not in the back and you're in a slow accelerating car, it's probably a good idea to triple tap anyway, because it's better to lose a little bit of time from having to wag a little bit later than to get knocked down. So I've passed the Falcon and the Holden, which are quite a bit slower than me at this rank, at least 20 miles per hour. And I just have this Hussaryas in front of me. So it turns out that this race had pretty bad matchmaking, and he was above a rank of 1730, 1740-ish, I believe. At which rank, the Hussaryas goes almost exactly the same speed as this Camaro. So we're nearing the end of the second lap, and he took the turn a little bit too wide and wrecked on the entrance to the tunnel. And then I did a wall ride here. That is one thing that can happen if you are in a fast car that doesn't drift well. You can get on the edge there and ride along. It's usually best to get off, though, pretty quickly, because if you reach the end, sometimes your car wrecks, and that's not good. So we beat a triple-boosted 1736 Hussaria GT and the F7 and the Holden Coupe. Now for a race on a very short and technical track, San Diego Harbor, which I would recommend avoiding in the Camaro of any rank. One bad thing about driving a Camaro is that most people know that it's a very powerful car, and so if they start up faster than you, they will attempt to knock down you like that LaFerrari did at the beginning of this race. But oftentimes, if they're not a very fast car themselves, you can catch up pretty quickly, as I'm catching up quickly to this LaFerrari. The other two cars in the race are an MP48, who is in second place, and a Vulcan, who is in first place. And I've now passed this LaFerrari. So I found that the Camaro at this rank is actually quite a fun car to drive, because its acceleration and drifting are a bit improved from the lower ranking, and so you can take turns like this a little bit easier. While still not being able to get around them without bumping the side, you have the improved acceleration to speed up from hitting it fairly quickly. So now we are catching up to this MP48 here. If this had been a one-lap track, he would have beat me, even though he's going about, 35 miles per hour slower than me or so. So yeah, don't vote this track in a Camaro, or Dubai, or Sector 8, or anything that has a lot of really twisty parts to them. Munich is fine though, if you know it, because a lot of other people don't, and as you saw earlier in the race, that can give you a real advantage on the track. So even though I am faster than this Vulcan because I got knocked down and because the turn slowed me down, he managed to beat me. He was a lower ranked 1631 triple boosted one. And we also beat a pro'd MP48. Now for a race on Ice Cave, a track that the Camaro does quite well at. So at the beginning here, this MP425 tried to knock me down, but he couldn't because the Camaro actually is somewhat resistant to knockdowns. As you saw, it's obviously not completely resistant because that LaFerrari knocked me down, but I've found that if you're in a slow accelerating car and a very fast accelerating car hits you from behind at the beginning, you will usually not get knocked down and you'll just slow them down. So it could be a good thing in that case. And less than 30 seconds in, because of the Camaro's superior speed, I've managed to pass the MP425 and MP48. This Camaro goes about 18 or so miles per hour faster than a similarly ranked MP425, which is pretty significant on a long track. Now on short tracks, the MP425s will generally beat the Camaro at this rank. One very good thing about this car is that it is extremely stable and predictable. The only problem is it occasionally skids on sidewalks, so that's one thing you have to watch out for. But other than that, it pretty much does exactly what you tell it to, and that's why, even though its drifting is kind of bad, you can still get around curves quite well because the drift punching is very consistent, which makes it easy to get around them once you learn how to do it. So we beat a 1631 MP425 and a 1642 Vulcan. Now for a very, very interesting race on Azure Coast against a fellow member of Purple Team, and of course I got knocked down at the beginning. The Purple Team member is the Purple Vulcan that is up there. His name is James P. So I thought, okay, even though I got knocked down at the beginning, it's Azure Coast on 2 laps, maybe I can catch up to him, because my car is about 5 or so miles per hour faster than his Vulcan. I realized today that my channel is just about 100 subs away from hitting 4,000, which is kind of crazy, since it was just a month and a half ago when we hit 3,000. So I want to thank you all for the continuing support on the videos, and I will continue to make them for as long as I possibly can. So again, thank you so much. Now around these corners, the Camaro does drift punch quite nicely actually, especially on the later ones. The first one is the sharpest one, and so it's kind of hard to get around that one without hitting the side. but the other two aren't as sharp, and so they're easier to get around. Now, at this point, I was actually catching up fairly close to James P. in his Vulcan, who is at a rank of 1675, I believe it is. If a race is on 2 laps, often I can gauge whether I will be able to beat someone by how much I am behind them at the beginning of the first lap, and if I catch up to them more than halfway in the first lap, I can usually beat them. But my car skidded to the side, and I lost a lot of speed. So I lost a lot of ground. And yeah, that is one bad thing about the Camaro. If you hit the side or do something like that, you make a mistake, it is quite unforgiving, so that's one thing you've got to worry about, even more so at lower ranks than this one. So even with those problems, I was managing to catch up very close again, and now we are coming to the final turn. It was very much neck and neck. Now here, you can clearly see I was not going to hit the rocks, but then I did. So yeah, that cost me the victory in this case, I believe. I think Gameloft made the Rocks hitbox slightly larger than the actual Rocks model, so stuff like that will happen. It's a good idea to just stay away from those rocks in most cases. I did give him 10 points though, and I beat a 1690 Hussara GT, so that's good at least. Now we have another race on Tokyo Reverse. This time my main competition were 2 Air and Air Hussara GTs, one at a rank of 1645 and one at a rank of 1690. Now in this Tokyo Reverse race, I am triple boosted, unlike in the previous one. So that helped quite a bit at the beginning. Even though I got bumped around a lot by a lot of different cars at the beginning, a lot of other cars would have been knocked down pretty quickly by now, but not the Camaro. The Camaro is quite resistant to knockdowns. So we've passed everybody now besides the 2 Hussara GTs, and now we are passing one of them. As you can see, I am faster than he is. And you can bump the police cars out of the way. I did not actually know you could do that for a long time, and I thought you had to go over the ramp, but you can bump them out of the way, and also there are clear spaces on either side where you can go as well. So that's interesting. Now we have just the single 1690 Hussara GT ahead. It goes a few miles per hour slower than me, maybe 308 or 309. I'm not sure. My Hussara GT is at 1679 rank. A good tactic on Tokyo Reverse in the Camaro or any car that drifts badly is to start drifting early and take the corners wide, because as you can see here, you can get around them easily without hitting the sides in that case. But you do have the problem of hitting the inside if you drift too early and too sharply. So it certainly takes a little bit of practice to get used to. Now, thankfully, I did not run out of nitro this time in this section because of my extra tanks, and at this point this Hussara GT, who I was catching up to, was getting a little bit flustered and not driving his best, so that allowed me to pass him. A lot of times in multiplayer, cars will not drive as well if there is someone coming up close to behind them. So I've passed that Hussara GT, and throughout the rest of the second lap, I just pulled slightly further and further ahead, and I ended up beating him by about 2.5 seconds. Both of the Hussara GTs were triple boosted in this race, and wow, we got a full 8-person room. That doesn't happen very often. So now for our final race, which is on Azure Coast against, guess what? Hussara GTs and a Vulcan. What else is new? Oh, a Sin. Now, that's not new, but they are rare to find at this rank because they're 18 legendary blueprints. And it was never given out in R&D or championship or anything, so yeah, not many people have them, but they are quite good at this rank, almost equal to the Hussara GT. The Sin is probably just a little worse because it can reach its maximum speed of around 305 miles per hour at a rank of 1682, unlike the Hussara GT, which is an S-Class car and can tune to go faster. So, is this car, the Camaro, worth it? Yes, it most certainly is. It has been in the game for a long time now, and it is still one of the most powerful multiplayer cars in the game. It can get you to Champion League fairly easily if you are below a rank of 1500, and I believe it could get you to Champion League at this rank as well. So people ask me a lot, should they buy the Camaro or save up for the Vulcan? Well, my answer, and this is what I've told a lot of people, is this. If you have other good multiplayer cars like the Hussara GT or Sagaris or M2 or something like that, continue saving for the Vulcan. But if you don't have any other good multiplayer cars, go ahead and buy the Camaro. That seems to me to be the best thing to do in those cases. So we have beat the Hussaria, the Sin, and the Vulcan. Thank you all for watching. Please like the video if you enjoyed it and found the tips in it to be helpful, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt 8 videos, and I will see you later. Goodbye.